Yo and hello. I've been reading Call the Night, and I think this series is actually pretty neat because there's actually a few things I've actually interested in talking about in this series so far. So far I've read 3 volumes. I think I gotta go get some more. I don't think I have anything coming at the moment, but I'm ready to read more for sure. I think the first thing that's apparent with Call the Night is that the setting and the vibe are actually is pretty cool, refreshing. Nighttime cityscapes, rooftops, more nightlife, stuff like that. So it's a little dark, like visually, it's a little darker. A lot more grays in the background and stuff, not just white backgrounds or daytime backgrounds in the back of the panels. Um, I don't want to do too much of a plot synopsis, but this started. Ko is the main guy, Nazuna, the vampire girl, and they stumble upon each other. And Ko is the kind of guy, he's just walking the streets at night. He has insomnia. He's not going to school at the moment. You know, he's been skipping out. He just like walks around all night. You know, he figures it's better than sitting around not doing nothing, and he prefers the nighttime to the daytime. And he stumbles upon Nazuna, and Nazuna is just being her vampire self. You know, she just wants to feed on him, to take some of his blood. But then he discovers what she is, and he kind of decides that, hey, I want to be a vampire too. And she kind of scoffs it off, like, oh shit, sure, whatever, kid. You know, the only way to fall in love, no, the only way to become a vampire is that you have to fall in love with a vampire and they have to suck your blood. So he's like, oh well, I'll do that. Yeah, let's do that. I want to be a vampire, and so it kind of immediately kind of takes a turn into like a relationship story. So he says he wants to fall in love and become a vampire, but he's putting the cart before the horse because his goal is to become a vampire. But and the way to getting that is having some kind of relationship with Nazuna. He realizes that he's not really interested in the daytime, daytime life, day life, going back to school. He's not really interested in that at the moment, and he comes to the conclusion that he wants to become a vampire. And she kind of scoffs at him, um, because she's not interested in romantic relationships at all. She's just, because feeding on someone is the way the vampires have to make more vampires reproduce, that there's almost an innuendo of sucking blood is like if like physical relationship, if you know what I mean. Ko starts his mission to become a vampire, but that means he has to fall in love with somebody, and that's what this story is about the two characters learning about what love is. And so he's kind of a naive schoolboy type situation where he doesn't really know what he's getting into, what he's doing, what really being in love means. And so there's a couple times where he makes these little baby steps in like a physical sense, in a relationship, in a physical sense, and he's like, oh, does this mean we're in love now? So can you turn me to a vampire? And it doesn't work. So he's very naive, and he doesn't really know what's going on, like how to actually go about falling in love with somebody. And also his motive is also backwards. He wants to become a vampire, and therefore he has to fall in love. Realistically, it seems like it should be the other way around, but he hasn't gotten that conclusion yet. At least is what I've read so far. And Nazuna, she likes dirty jokes. She likes talking dirty. Even when Ko like asks to be her friend, or when Ko like talks about being in like a serious relationship, she completely blushes. She shuts down. She can't handle that kind of conversation. But she likes dirty jokes, so she's kind of conversely, she's very and she talks about how their relationship is physical in nature only, and not, there's no emotional like baggage or anything else going on there. So that's where the story is. They're kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum. He's really naive, and she only sees relationships from a physical standpoint. She doesn't bring emotions into it. So when emotions does have it come into it, she has a she seems like she struggles with that a lot. And as the story progresses, they kind of do spoon feed more characters, but for almost the full half of this volume, there's only 2 characters. It's Nazuna and Ko, and that's it. They kind of hang out a couple times to do a few things. They learn a little bit more about each other, but the story does spoon feed more characters in as the story goes along, and those characters are more, have their own stories and situations, and it seems like the format turns into Ko helping them along and discovering themselves, helping them with their relationship sometimes. Like the first character we meet, she's a friend of Ko's, a schoolmate, and she seems like she's kind of concerned about him not coming to school, and she seems to be supportive about his uh, new life that he's trying to embark on. But she says she leaves the door open for him, saying that if you want to come back to school, I'm here for you. I'll get you back on track if you want to come back and get educated and everything and get back in the more normal life. Because she says even like vampires need an education. So like that's because she kind of represents a not unrequited love, but a what's that called? unconditional. So she kind of represents unconditional love. She has a certain sense of unconditional love for Ko, in that she's thinking of what's best for him and leaving the door open for him if he ever wants to pursue education and get back in school, get back with maybe after he's done, you know, turning into a vampire or something like that. And there's a few characters they introduce like that. The story, as the story goes on, they introduce characters in problems with their life, and that Ko will help them out with that. And that's kind of the format so far. In volume 3, the plot thickens a little bit, but I'm not going to go into details. It's not that important. But I'm already kind of addressing like what the story's about here. So that's kind of what I want to talk about here. And what makes Call of the Night interesting is that it's not just like a rom com or like a story where characters like learn about each other and help each other out. It's a character study about two these people coming into a relationship with each other somehow, and learning about either what love actually is, how what it's a good coming of age story, along with a naive schoolboy like learning like, oh, this isn't real love. What I'm feeling right now is actually just admiration, or what I'm feeling right now is just like a physical attraction. And so it goes through those steps and explains like, so I imagine the story's going to keep developing that way, which I think is a good way to progress your story, because it's not just thinking of more interesting situations that happen and that's the progression of your story until it reaches its conclusion. It's actually about making emotional and having the characters learn things about themselves and relationships and stuff like that as the story goes on. So I think actually Call of Night is actually very good and interesting so far. I could go more in detail in the plot. If you're interested, I'll do maybe more of a spoiler review across all three of these books, go into stuff, but I think that's mostly like what that's a good introduction, like why I think it's actually pretty cool to be reading Call of Night at the moment. So yeah, let me know if you wanted me to more talk in depth about maybe each individual volume, each storyline, stuff like that. Let me know. So yeah, check out this and more videos I got on my channel. So yeah, see you guys later.